Hi guys, my name is Selena and this is my YouTube page, Color Her Wonderful. I guess I just want to first off start by saying that I've never done something like this before, so forgive me for being a little bit on the nervous side. Like I said, my name is Selena and I'm doing a book review. I saw a lot of videos on YouTube for this when I was looking up some myself, just trying to, find something else that I could read. I love to read. I read a lot, so I guess I could tell you a little bit about myself. Like I just said, I read a lot. I'm 18 years old, I'm a senior in high school, and in the fall I will be attending Stephen F. Austin State University to major in English and minor in creative writing and become a high school English teacher. So I'm really, really excited about it, and that's basically me. Basically what I'm going to do is just, talk with you about a couple books I've read, and maybe do this monthly, possibly weekly, I don't know, maybe sporadic, we'll see. First off, let me tell you what my favorite kind of books are. I'm a huge romance fan. More specifically, like paranormal romances. I think it started off with Twilight. Not so much of a good book now, in my opinion, now that I'm looking back at it. It was pretty good. My apologies to the writer, Stephanie Meyer. I don't really mean that she sucks. Just that, it was very candy-coated in a sense, as the fact that you don't always get what you want, and that was kind of how it is with Twilight. It was a good book, the writing was fantastic, but it was very unrealistic, and that's okay. Books are supposed to be unrealistic sometimes, but that is my favorite type of story, paranormal romances. That being said, every once in a while I do read outside of that genre. Like one of the ones I'm going to talk to you Two of the ones I'm going to talk to you today are not so much romances and definitely not a paranormal story. The first one I'm going to talk about is Go Ask Alice. It's by Anonymous. We don't even know who wrote it. It is a personal story. If you'll see here, it's basically a journal that this girl left behind after she killed herself, kind of. And the back says, January 24th. After you've had it, there isn't even life without drugs. I don't know if many people have read the Crank series. I've never have myself. I'm not much of a drug fan, and therefore I don't really read about it. However, my sister loves reading about books like that. She's just a fan. I don't know what it is, but I can never really get into them. One day, my sister worked for Hewlett Packard, and I was with her coming home from our dad's house, and she went to, she had to, they needed her at work, and it was already like, I want to say 7 or 7:30, and Hewlett Packard was about an hour from where I live, and so I was just like with her. I couldn't drive yet. I was like 15, so I wasn't driving yet, so it's like I couldn't go home, plus I couldn't leave her. How was she gonna get home? So I stayed. We ended up leaving at 2 in the morning. Well, I loved to read, and the only books I had with me were Twilight, which I'd already read one time, which I'd finished at my dad's house that weekend, so I wasn't going to read it again. I just read it. So my sister said, you know what, I've got this book, Go Ask Alice, waiting in my car. And I was like, okay, I guess so. It was the first book, that I'd ever read. I didn't really read outside of my genre. So I was just like, I guess I could try it, thinking I'm gonna hate it, And I'm really only doing this because I don't want to hurt your feelings. Well, I picked up Go Ask Alice, and like I said, it was like 7:30, 2 o'clock in the morning when we left. We started at 7:30, left at 2 a.m., and I lived an hour away. I finished this book in that time period. It was addicting. I could not put it down. I love the story of the girl. I can't even remember her name or if she even said it. Like I said, the book is authored by Anonymous. Basically, it's the story of a girl who starts out with just, a bright future. She's a good kid. She doesn't really do anything bad, doesn't stay out late all that much. She, goes to school, does her work, and she's pretty good. I'm not really particularly not sure how. I don't really want to tell you how she gets into it, but she gets introduced to LSD. It is set in the time period where LSD is a typical thing for teenagers to do. We joke around that our parents did it, and they probably did because it was their time period. And basically that's what she gets stuck on. It takes us through her from the beginning, through her struggle with drugs. And she faces a lot of times where it's like, you could have died. I loved this book. I'm not a fan of sad endings. I'm really, really not. But I loved it. It ended pretty sad. So if you're kind of like me, I'm a pansy. I cry so easily. And if you are just like weak-hearted like that, like you can't read a book where it's just, that didn't go very well for the main character, then I wouldn't recommend Go Ask Alice. But if you are a fan of the realistic everyday stuff, then I definitely recommend it. This was a true story. It was written by a girl, taken from her diary after she offed herself. Really was never really proven what happened to her. It was pretty sad. It's kind of a romance. Like I said, I'm a sucker for romance movies and books, but she kind of goes through, she kind of gets a grace period where she is clean and she falls in love with this guy, and then it's just bam, you know, something happens and we're right back where we were starting. So it's a pretty good book. It's got more than 5 million copies sold. It's old, definitely, but I'd read it again. And so that brings me to my second book, which is kind of in the same theme. It's called 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. If you've never heard of Jay Asher, he also, I think it was called The Future of Us, but he wrote it with another person, and I could maybe discuss that in another video. 13 Reasons Why was, it was a crazy book. This was a time period in my life where I just finished Go Ask Alice, and I was fascinated with the storyline. I don't know. I always thought that suicide books were a little over the top. I don't want to say risque because that's more of a sexual reference, but it was definitely out of the norm to read books like this. It really is. And 13 Reasons Why is about a girl, not quite sure, Hannah. Her name was Hannah. It's been a long time since I read it. Basically, she committed suicide, and we basically go through the 13 reasons why that led up to what it was. And we're reading from a man's perspective, or a young guy. He's a teenager in high school as well, which I don't typically like to do. I like to read from my own gender's mindset because I feel like I can relate to the character more, because I myself am a female. So if she's going through something, I could possibly say, oh, I've been through that before too. So this was definitely a step in a different direction, you know, stepping out of the box, which is what I was trying to do with my life. And his name was Clay, and he's basically, it's the instructions come like mailed to them. It's back when they had tapes, you know, so he's listening to this tape on his Walkman about this girl going through the reasons why she killed herself, and they're all terrible reasons, and he's thinking, you know, like, I kind of had a crush on you. Like, what could I possibly have done that made you want to kill yourself? Like, he liked her, you know? So basically what you do is you go through the tapes. You know, the first person would listen to theirs. The second person will listen to the first person's, and then theirs. And then the third person listens to the first two, and then theirs. They don't go past theirs. They listen to the one that leads up to theirs. So, but he's like 8 or 9. So he's listening to all these reasons, and all the while we're going through it, going like switching off from the tape, which is where Hannah is, to where he is in life, like what he's doing. And it's pretty cool because in the front cover you kind of see like it's a map of the town, and that's really cool because you get to see where this girl literally was. Anyway, 13 Reasons Why was a really, really good book. It was real, kind of depressing, and like I said, when I was done reading it, I was actually on a camping trip with my parents. When I was done reading it, I had to take a step back and tell myself life is good. You know, like, I set the book down, put it in my camping bag that was just with all my stuff, so basically just my suitcase, and I kind of got out of our camper, and I just walked around for a little bit, and I, you know, looked at like the good stuff about life. That's basically what that book did to me, but I definitely recommend it. I'd say 15, because any younger than that I wouldn't recommend it being a suicide book. Of 15, someone younger than 15 reading a suicide book. It was a New York #1 New York Times bestseller. It's actually in 31 different languages, and it's pretty amazing. For those of you who are, you know, wondering how many pages it could possibly be, it's like 230 or 290, almost 300. Don't know why I said 230. But not in light of it being a suicide book, it's not so much just that. It's about this guy who is basically like, there's a side story to it, and I don't want to ruin it because it's like, it's not just about Hannah and Clay. It's not just about him wanting to figure out what he could have possibly done to this girl he had a crush on that made her want to kill herself, because it was a whole 13 reasons combined for why she did this to herself. And but it's kind of a backstory. It makes him realize that this kind of stuff is out there. People do kill themselves, and he has the opportunity in the end to help somebody that he realizes after listening to the tapes and finding out what his involvement was in Hannah's suicide. He realizes that there's another person out there who is possibly on the brink, and he could possibly save that person. So it kind of ends like that, in light, basically. It's really sad that she killed herself, and obviously I do not recommend that on anybody. It's a sad thing, especially if you know someone who did, like I did. I was really young when I first learned the real effects of suicide. But he gets the opportunity to save somebody else when he couldn't save Hannah, because he didn't know that she needed saving. So basically he gets the opportunity, and it's a good story. It ends on a lighter note. But my third book I do not own. I cannot find it anywhere but online, and I hate ordering online. I actually own the second one. It's called Walk of the Spirits. It's by Richie Tankersley Cusick. I think that's how you say her name. Forgive me if I butchered it. It's basically about this girl. She lived in Louisiana, and it was just after the hurricane, and her house was just destroyed, demolished. So she has to move back with her. Well, she lives with her mom, and it's just her mom and her. And they moved back where the mom grew up. Can't remember where that was. I think it was some other place, but it basically got it's like a boondocks kind of, like it has a boondocks to it. And she meets all these people. Like, it's a group of friends where it's like, how are you friends? It's kind of like a Breakfast Club theme. Not the storyline, but the group of friends. You've got a cheerleader whose sister is a goth, and they're basically best friends, and the cheerleader's boyfriend is a jock, and then you've got kind of like a, I don't want to say nerdy, but like the cute kind of kid, the young one, you know, who seems young, but he's really the same age as everyone else, which is like 17. And then you've got another guy who's like a worker, doesn't really ever want to go to school, but he's not so much a bad kid. He doesn't do bad things. He's just more focused on work, because he's like, school never really been there for me. I'm not that good at it, so I'm going to focus on where I am good at, and that's furthering my work effort. So basically it's that. And the girl's name is Miranda, and she's living in this town. She's just trying to fit in, and it's an old town, and she notices right off the bat that she sees things other people can't see. I don't want to say the classic I see dead people line, but that's basically how it is. She sees dead people, and she sees basically people who need help, you know, passing on. And the first person she sees is an old war veteran from a long time ago. I think it was like the Civil War or the Cold War. I'm not really sure which one it was. Not a good history buff. Anyway, she sees him, and it takes us through his story as well as hers, and the journey that she takes along it. It's a romantic story. It has romance in it. Romance goes more in depth in the second one, which is called Shadow Mirror. And it's basically that one, but I loved Walk of the Spirits. I really would recommend it. One of the main recommendations is why I decided to talk about this on my first one, is that after reading it, I was completely enthralled. I had to know where it went, and so I went and got Shadow Mirror. I bought it, and I waited the awful 3 days it took for that to come in the mail, and I read it in a day. I was so just like, this is amazing. And when I was done with that one, I was like, I wonder if there's a third one, because it ended a cliffhanger, and you know how that is. So I went and looked up, see if there was a third one, and well, I was at the author's website, and I was reading her blog, and she said, much to her dismay, there would not be a third one, due to the fact that there were not many readers of the Walk of the Spirits series. My heart broke, because it ended on, like I said, I'm a romance lover. I love romance, and I really just had to know where this girl's love life went after she basically has to choose between two guys. And but that's basically a side story. I just think people should read it so that we can get a third one. But it's a really good book. It's basically she is doing a group project with these kids who are just, how could they possibly be friends is my question, because they're so different. And I love it though, because I've never been one that stayed in my own group. I have tons of different kinds of friends. But they go through this really old town, and they take their class on just this learning about the town and all about it. And it sounds really boring. I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't want to go on that trip at all. But it's really interesting. It actually ends up being pretty interesting. And to learn the backstory of why this war veteran is still alive, which was a romantic reason why he was still out there was so incredibly amazing. I loved it. So Shadow Mare and Walk of the Spirits, that's a pretty good series. I think everyone should read that. 13 Reasons Why and Go Ask Alice. Definitely give them a shot. They're pretty good. And that concludes my first session. Thank you guys so much, and subscribe!